Hey, welcome back to my channel. I make weekly art tutorials, paint-alongs and vlogs, and in this video I'm going to be answering some questions that you very kindly asked a few weeks ago. As I answer those questions, I'm also going to be doing a floral bouquet painting to complement these two pieces that I did using the same color scheme. I actually ended up turning this into a set, and they are available as cards on my Etsy and very soon on my Kofi too. The tools that I was using were some Rowney Paper and some student grade Winsor & Newton Cotman, and the brush is the Princeton Aqua Elite. It's a real-time painting, and though I'm not going to be using a reference per se, I am going to be drawing a lot of inspiration from the other pieces. So I'm using the same colors, I'm going to use a similar florals, I'm just arranging them differently. So feel free to join in as well if you'd like. So with no further ado, let's get started. Someone anonymously asked, how do you build a social media following? I'm trying to start an Instagram for my art and I don't know how to get myself out there. That's a very interesting question, and I think in this time and age it's probably a question that a lot of people are thinking about. If you have insights into this and you'd like to share them, then please feel free to do so in the comments. I think for me, how you approach this will depend on what you want to get out of this and why you want to share your art. Whether it's for friends or for money or for whatever other reason, I don't think that there is a right or wrong reason to do it. I just think that if you know what that reason is, then you'll have a better idea of how to approach it. So if it is for kind of building community and wanting to have, I guess, like-minded friends who know what paper GSM is, who know like different brands of watercolors, who can advise you, who can, all that good stuff, then the way to grow that following and to genuinely build it is to basically engage with the communities. This isn't necessarily the fastest way. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's the slowest way, but it will mean that you can genuinely build connections with these artists. So the way that that works is actually taking the time to leave meaningful comments on the pieces of art that you see, because ultimately what you're looking at is not just content, but actually someone's art. Engaging in reels, engaging in like the posts that they leave, using the relevant hashtags so that other artists who are also doing the same challenge can see your work, and vice versa. As with every niche, there are some like big boy Instagrammers that, for example, are in the floral space who like to do florals and will also do this in your style challenges or other challenges. So a way that, for example, if you're into florals, you could grow is by actually taking part in those challenges, by taking the time to comment on them and also seeing other people who follow them. As well as doing this, if your focus is maybe on growing a bit faster or growing for brand deals or growing for more recognition or just reaching out more people, then you can also complement this by employing other strategies. I am not a social media expert nor do I have like millions of followers, but from my observation, these are the things that I've noticed. Things like using reels with trending sounds, posting regular reels, so we're talking around 4 or 5 a week. Again, engaging with other people, using the features that Instagram puts out as new features. So for example, they have the collaboration feature at the moment. I personally believe that these things will help with the growth, and there are plenty of like YouTube videos as well that will give further information on that. As I said, I'm not like a social media expert or anything like that, and in fact I'm not that active on Instagram. I never got to like the you want a bamba kind of big boys level of Instagram. Now with regards to posting your art online in general or sharing your work online in general, there's a book by Austin Kleon called Show Your Work, which I actually thought was quite good on the topic. And it was just talking about different ways to share your art, how to share your art, what art to share, and just a little bit more of the focus on the mindset around sharing the art. So that might be something that may also help you, but I hope that that helps. As with all the questions, if you want to ask more, then feel free to do so in the comment. And if you're enjoying the video so far, then don't forget to hit the like button and to consider subscribing, as it makes a massive difference to me and to this channel and to our growth. So thank you in advance for doing that. Now let's get more personal. In terms of the next question, I think it was more like out of concern, but essentially it's, are you worried about burnout? This is a really good question. First of all, don't worry, I'm fine. I'm not burning out. But it is something or a topic that I am aware of, especially because I know that there is burnout like in the community amongst doctors, amongst the population as a whole, and also amongst creators, especially in this social media world where you feel like you just have to keep creating and creating and creating content or art. So I wouldn't say that I'm worried about it, but it's something that I am actively aware of and try to avoid and try to be mindful of, because obviously I am working a lot and I know that the risk factors for it could potentially be there, right? Like if you work all the time and you don't take breaks, then obviously it will happen. So the way that I tackle it is basically by taking breaks. You will know that I like to travel, you'll know that I like to spend time with my family, and the breaks have become not just from work as a whole, but also from YouTube and trying to unplug more and more. And that is something that I would encourage people to think about when you turn something that is your passion into something that you have to do more with more accountability, and also be aware of the fact that you may need to have a break from it. In a nutshell, just because you enjoy it doesn't mean that it's actually a break. And another thing that I have put in place in order to, I guess, protect myself from this is starting the Kofi. It's a platform similar to Patreon where people can support me and support the channel. And the way that it works is that they can either join as members monthly, in which case they'll get monthly rewards such as art challenges, painting together, meeting up, and other surprises that I don't want to spoil. Or they can kind of use it as a tip jar system, which just means making a single donation every so often to, again, continue to support the growth of the channel. And I think the reason why I look at this as a potential protective measure is because essentially it will mean that I won't have to take up extra shifts, and most importantly that will mean more time. So more time that I can dedicate to art, which is actually good for me and I felt like I didn't have time to do before. More time to create YouTube videos, more time to engage with you guys, more time to grow in my art journey and to share it along with you, for us to do art challenges, for us to do meetups, for us to just continue to grow this community, which ultimately is also a protective factor from burnout and from stress and from everything else, because it just means making time for ourselves. So I may be placing too much hope on this, but I do think that if it works, it will be amazing, and it will mean that we get to hang out for a very, very, very long time. And this is from Creating Cute Art, who also has a YouTube channel and whom I also love. And she says, how close do your family members live, aka how far away a drive, and how often do you see them? Which do you spend most time with? And are they all as supportive as it sounds like they are? They sound very lovely. Please tell them that they have fans. Thank you so much. So family live like 2 hours away from me. They are absolutely awesome. I get to see them at least once a month. There's just quite a few of us and we meet up for all birthdays, we meet up for Christmas, for Easter, and sometimes we try to have like sibling days as well. So roughly once a month. Are they as supportive? Yes. Like honestly, my family are my biggest fans, my biggest supporters. You have no idea how many times I like second guess myself, and they're always there to kind of encourage me to go ahead. And my sisters, they still watch my videos. You know, even though they don't have to, they still do. If you look back on my video about my first year on YouTube and kind of growing to 1,000 subscribers, you'll notice that the first month was 7 subscribers. Those 7 were myself and my family members, like without doubt. So definitely a massive support system. I think I spend like an equal time with all of them, because when we meet up, we tend to all meet up together, like as a group, rather than like, you know, only meet up with a sister or a brother or blah blah blah. I inevitably tend to talk about my sisters more. I wonder why. Because we go on holiday together a little bit more. The boys don't like to travel as much. But yeah, we all tend to kind of spend the bulk of time together. Next question is by Iridescent Siren, and they ask, how do you balance work/personal life and making time for art? And this is such a good question that I'm not going to lie, I am really struggling with. And I think the reason that I'm struggling with it is because I don't think that I have got a good balance yet. It's something that I am continuously working on and continuously mindful of, but I do think it's something that I could get better at, because at the moment I am very much like work focused. For those of you who don't know, I work full time as a doctor, and then I also create art. I have an Etsy store, and then I also make YouTube videos. In terms of personal life, I don't tend to make much time for that. If anything, it almost feels like art is my personal life. which sounds terrible. So yeah, it's something, this question I've really struggled to answer. The best way that I can kind of say is in terms of like priorities. So for me, my family is always my priority, and they are the bulk of my personal life. Then obviously work. I work full time as a junior doctor, and that comes with a lot of time commitments and a lot of responsibilities, which I take very seriously. And then following that, I think also as part of my personal life and taking care of myself falls art. I started painting and creating during the pandemic. From there, it kind of continued. I, at the time, was making art every day, but as life has got busier, it's kind of turned to less and less. And then obviously making YouTube videos is another passion of mine that I didn't foresee, but one that does take up a lot of time. So by the nature of it, it's meant that I create less art, but I've kind of seen YouTube videos as another form of expression, if you like. And yeah, I'm just trying my best. I don't really have a solution as of yet, but it is something that perhaps I will think on to see how am I doing it, because I'm also doing a master's. I'm doing a lot of things. And yet at the same time I procrastinate, and I also feel like I don't do enough. So I wish I had a better answer, but for me at the moment it is kind of being conscious of the few minutes that I have that are perhaps spare, and using that to create art or do something that is more important to me, being mindful of time so that I don't let time just go by and I'm scrolling mindlessly on social media or whatever. If I'm taking a break, I want it to be an actual designated break that I can enjoy completely guilt-free. So I'm just mindful of, and then also not beating myself up. I know that I can't at the moment make art every day, and that's okay. I will just continue to do my best. I've also been very mindful of not only making time for everything, but not burning myself out. And for that reason, I have been thinking about ways that I can make my channel more sustainable. And one of those ways is by starting a Kofi. So this is very similar to a Patreon, and I'll link it down below for anyone who wants to support. But I essentially want to create a community where we can do art just together, can be more open, and but also part of it will mean that people, should they wish, will be able to financially support the channel and support the YouTube videos that I'm making financially, and that will make a massive impact. For one thing, it will mean that I don't have to take up extra shifts and allow me to invest back into YouTube, into myself, into my art, because obviously we all have bills to pay. Unfortunately. So I think that's been one of the struggles that I've had as well, just balancing work from the financial commitments that I have, but then also investing into YouTube, knowing that work is paying for YouTube and the cycle that is. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry for rambling. When did you first start getting into art and painting? So I kind of touched on this in previous videos, and this is by Holm. I'm sorry, I'm saying the name wrong, I'm sure, but I have always loved drawing. I used to kind of it sounds so embarrassing. I used to draw cartoon characters for people, kind of draw it as a poster if you like, and then sell it in school for, I think my initial rates were 5p, 5 pence or cents, depending on where you're at, and then eventually with time I increased it to like 50p. It depended on what exactly people would want. And this was in primary school. So I've always loved art, always loved drawing. Then in secondary school I did textiles, which is more focused on like the materials as opposed to creating clothes and as opposed to art itself, but it did lean itself towards art because it was kind of like art-based textiles focused on the patterns. Following that, in I guess what would be considered senior year for my American viewers, I wanted to do art, but I also wanted to do medicine, and no one had done medicine in my school for years. Medicine can be quite difficult to get into, and my school wasn't great. I wanted to do art, but I also wanted to do medicine, and I wanted to do art not as a career path. I was always very clear that I wanted to become a doctor. My school said no. They were very much, and in the nicest way, I'm not trying to put them in a bad way, in a bad light or anything, in the nicest way possible, they basically said, we can't risk you failing the important subjects that would mean you wouldn't be able to do medicine for the sake of something that you can do in your spare time. You can't do art, and thus I didn't do art any further than, I guess, primary school. And then during the pandemic, I was living alone, and from there I just started drawing again, and from drawing I started painting, and I'm not sure why, but I am so glad that I did. And before then, I hadn't really done much painting. It was all pretty much drawing and experimenting with paints every once in a while. Very long answer for a very short question. I started getting into art in childhood, and I started painting during the pandemic. Willow Rose Arlen, who again has a YouTube channel, asked me quite a few questions that I'll get through. So, do you have any pets? No, I don't have any. What's your favorite medium and why? Ooh, and least favorite and why? Hard question. My favorite medium depends on the day. So it's either watercolor or it's gouache. And I think today, yeah, it's both. Like, if I had to pick one, I think it would probably be gouache. At the moment, certainly. I like the flexibility of gouache. It genuinely changes on a day-to-day basis as to which one is top, because they're pretty much tied. But I think if I were to answer today, it would be gouache. If you ask me tomorrow, it'd probably be watercolor. Which is my least favorite? This isn't necessarily the fairest answer because I haven't used it in years, but I don't really like soft pastels. I don't like getting my hands dirty. I don't like the feel of it on the paper. I don't like that it smudges everywhere. I think I tried it once maybe in secondary school and I just didn't like it thereafter. So that would be my answer, although it's kind of cheating. Do you have a medium that you'd love to try but you haven't tried? Or maybe techniques or an idea that you're scared to try? I'd like to try oil painting, but I haven't tried it. And I haven't tried it because I feel like I'm not patient enough for it, and the idea of waiting for paint to dry for days just blows my mind. But that being said, I have seen some beautiful, beautiful, beautiful oil paintings, and that has really made me wonder whether I should try. So that's something that I definitely want to try. Do you speak any other languages? Sì, parlo italiano. So yes, I speak Italian and I speak English. I also speak Igbo, which is a language in Nigeria. And that's pretty much it. Do you have any favorite or standout art experiences from the past year? Ooh, that's a good question. One that immediately comes to, I have a few. One that immediately comes to mind is working with Archer and Olive to create a challenge. And the challenge that I designed was basically creating art based on words from inspiring Black women throughout history. So I really, really enjoyed doing that. It got me to think outside the box and be a bit more creative, and also just working with such a wonderful brand was definitely like a standout experience that I didn't see coming. So that one was definitely great. Another standout art experience, and again I don't know if it counts, has just been like all the blessings that have come from starting a YouTube channel, one of which is the community that we've built. Like getting to speak to such amazing people and learning about your own art journeys, getting to chat, getting advice on art supplies. It's just been so amazing, and something that I didn't really foresee. And that has been through comments where I actually recognize the person who's writing. It's been through my MVPs who joined the premieres and the ones who've joined the live stream, so that we've actually, at least it feels to me like we've painted together. It's been through like chats that I've had voice to voice with Maggie from Creating Cute Art, and with Moni, and with Sarah Burns Studio. And honestly, I have made some really great friends over the past year through YouTube, and that is something that I didn't foresee at all, but I'm super grateful for. And you are one of them, because if you're still listening, you are an MVP. I haven't finished yet, but I just want to let you know you are amongst this group. Oh, same question. Are there any other artists and YouTubers who are inspiring you right now? So I created a whole separate video about my favorite artists, and although that list has grown, those artists are still stand out, and I will link them down below. But definitely, if I had to pick one, that would be very hard. Okay, if I had to pick, okay, I'll pick one for, let me pick one for landscapes and one for portraits. So if I had to pick one for landscapes, it would be Sarah Burns. I feel so inspired by all her paintings. I feel so inspired by all her videos, and literally the fact that she can find beauty in anything. Looking at her sketchbooks are wonderful, and when I see her art, it makes me, one, appreciate my surroundings more. 2, want to travel and see the world more. And 3, it makes me more conscious of the fact that I don't necessarily need to go to somewhere grand in order to create art. I don't necessarily need super expensive supplies in order to create art. I just feel very inspired by her as a whole, and that hasn't changed with time. If I had to pick one for portrait, and the reason that I pick portrait as a category is because it's something that I don't do often, but something that I've always wanted to get better at. And for me at the moment, that would be a ham rib. And again, I'll link her down below, and she was featured in that video that I mentioned earlier. And I just love like her style. Now I don't think I will ever try to recreate her style or anything like that, but I mean, I just love the way that paintings come together. I love her understanding of light and shadows and the colors that she uses. I just love seeing her pieces come together, and I've again found it very inspiring. And there's something like very free about her art as well that I quite enjoy. Like, she'll do pen sketches and then paint over the pen sketches, and then use cheap art supplies, expensive art supplies, whatever she's using, the art is beautiful. So I love not only the portraits that she creates, but also how she creates them and the freedom that's around that. Excellent questions below. I had forgotten them, so you caught me a bit off guard, but that was really, really nice. Then let me see. E4 Al Abbasi asked, what is your favorite piece that you have created so far? And to be perfectly honest, I don't think I could pick one, which is, I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. There are certain pieces that I really like. So for example, one that we did during the live stream of Venice, I really like my loose florals as well. But I don't have a favorite. Like, I couldn't pick one that I'm like, yeah, this is the best of the best. And I feel it's because with every piece, I feel like I could do better. Make of that what you will. Then Marilise Els asked, what advice do you have for new artists just starting out who have no clue what to paint and how to improve their paintings? And secondly, do you have any animals, and if so, can we see them? I don't have any animals. I think one, remember to have fun. So don't put too much pressure on yourself, especially if you're starting off. There's this notion or this belief that I completely agree with, that you should aim to and strive to continuously be a student, to continuously be trying to improve. There is no end destination, and I think that if you bear that in mind, it will take off this pressure of like you have to be perfect or you have to get to a certain level, because ultimately the journey is endless, so you will continue to improve, and that is the aim. In terms of ways to improve, I think it's worth trying to learn the basics, which this is more of a do as I say and not as I do kind of approach, because things like light, color, composition, perspective, drawing, I think these things will help improve art. And I think that although you don't have to do art sticking to certain rules, there are certain things that you can learn that will perhaps make your journey a bit easier and a little bit less frustrating. But yeah, I hope that kind of helps. But essentially taking it a step at a time, having fun, learning the basics, making use of the free resources that you have, whether it be courses, classes, YouTube or books, and critiquing, like looking back and not putting yourself or your art down, but literally looking with an objective eye and being like, okay, what do I like about this piece and what should I continue doing, and then what do I not like as much and should improve. So Helen, who goes by Pierre Schilling, asked, are your family artistic too? And this is a very interesting question. I think the answer is yes. We all have started doing things like paint evenings where we will paint either each other or surroundings or different things. We're all very much creatively inclined. Sophie Peach asks, have you ever used fountain pens for sketching? And I have used them briefly. I have bought a fountain pen as well to do more sketching with, because I like how expressive they are. So yes, I have, not that much, but I want to do more of it. Then Katerina Holick, who's been like one of these OG subscribers who's been watching for a very long time, asked, what is your favorite color in general? And in painting in, and what form of paints are your favorite, i.e. pans or tubes? How much do you care for light fastness, and have you ever tried other medias other than watercolor and gouache, and why did you choose watercolor? Excellent questions. So in terms of my favorite color in general, i.e. to like wear, black. I love black. I love black shoes. I love black bags. I love black clothes. I love black. To paint in, that's a very good question. I think at the moment I'm really feeling purples, but if you were to look at my pans, you would see that the yellows and like the permanent roses are almost gone, almost always. How much do I care about light fastness? This is a very interesting question. Initially, to be honest, I didn't really care much for light fastness. Most of my art is in a sketchbook. I'm not planning on selling it. I'm not planning on hanging it up on a wall. So it doesn't really matter if it doesn't last 100 or 200 years. I just need it to last my lifetime. But the more I've started painting and the more I've started thinking about it, the more it started to matter to me. I think because I'm using more expensive supplies. So I feel like if I'm going to invest in supplies that are expensive, I at least want to be mindful of the ones that will fade and the ones that will not fade. And if there is an alternative that will not fade for the same price point, I would rather go with that one. So I think that's been more of a conscious decision more recently. Also because I don't know if I ever will sell my art, but it would be nice to not think back and be like, oh my gosh, did I use a paint that is going to fade or discolor? And I think one of the things that swayed me was seeing Miranda Watson, who also has a YouTube channel. On there, she did a video where she essentially did 2 paintings, put them up in a window for I think 6 months, and then looked at the results, and they were shocking. And I never want to look at my art and see that it has completely crumbled. It was just so sad to see. So that is something that again had me thinking in the back of my mind, perhaps I should be more conscious about it. Now there are a few workarounds, like keeping it in the sketchbook, keeping it away from sunlight. If you're going to digitize your artwork and actually create prints from it, then again it doesn't matter as much. But as I say, these are just things that I'm bearing in mind, especially because I used to think that professional paints meant that they were automatically light fast, and that is not the case. So if I'm going to invest a lot of money in an art supply, I may as well take the time to know if it's going to fade if it's left out by accident. With regards to pans versus tubes, I'm very much a pan kind of girl at the moment. In fact, the tubes that I do have, I turn into half pans. And with regards to other mediums, to watercolor and gouache, I've also used pencils, but again, not that much. So I have tried that. Biros were my first love, fine liners, oil pastels as well, acrylics, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Why did I choose watercolor? To be perfectly honest, I am not sure. Like, I honestly can't remember why. I know that I tried acrylics before, and I don't tend to like my acrylic paintings very much, and I don't like the process as much, although I knew that I wanted to try painting. Oh, maybe. I don't know to what extent this had an impact, but at the time I always used to enjoy watching Minnie Small and Teo Yi Chi, who I'll also link down below, and they used watercolor quite a lot. So I don't know if it was more of a they use it, like, you know, I didn't consciously think about it, but I was aware that there were other paint mediums that I could use that would be more flexible and didn't seem to generate as much waste, and perhaps I would enjoy a bit more, and also were very affordable. Bought it, I tried it, and I did really like it, and from there the rest is history. Nicola King asked, what basic supplies do you recommend for a beginner? I feel that I don't want to spend too little, but at the same time not too much. I don't want the quality of material to deter me, if that makes sense. Nicola, that makes so much sense. And I was in a similar kind of predicament. I created a video that I will link down below as well, where I kind of went through that into more detail. I could honestly talk about this for ages, and I will try to summarize, and if anyone has anything to add, please feel free to leave it down below in the comments. And if you have any extra questions that I don't answer in here, then just hit me up in my Instagram DMs and we can talk about it there. I think that it is actually okay, if not encouraged, to just have a few small colors from a reputable brand. And what I mean by a few colors is to either have like a split primary, which basically means a core and a warm of the primary colors, yellow, blue and red, or to have like a small travel kit. Quite a few of these brands will also have like setups which basically come with 12 colors, and I think that these sets are good to get started with. Now, if you were to ask me which brand in particular, I wouldn't necessarily say that there is a brand I think is like student or beginner friendly. I think that it's a question of finding whichever brand is locally accessible and affordable to you. You will notice that there are some names that keep coming up over and over and over again because they're trusted. And for me, there would be things like Winsor & Newton, Daniel Smith, Sennelier, Holbein, Core, Schminke, Roman Schmall, Paul Rubens. These are kind of professional watercolor brands. From there, you can either pick their student grade, which tend to be not as light fast and perhaps use cheaper pigments, or you can use their professional grade paints. Again, I think depending on your price point, because the key thing is that you want to get supplies that you will actually use, not that you will reverence and not use because they feel too expensive. And that is me very not subtly speaking from experience. So different brands will be accessible and different prices depending on where you are in the world. For example, Schminke will be very expensive in some places but very affordable in Germany. Daniel Smith is more affordable in the US, but Winsor & Newton is more affordable in the UK. So it really does depend where you are. Look locally, and if you do find a brand that you like, maybe look at 1 or 2 reviews and take it from there. Different brands and different watercolors will behave differently, but honestly, I think for a beginner, those nuances you won't really pick up on. So it's just a question of finding some good paints that you can start off with. You'll only have a small number of them, which will allow you to figure out if you like working with them, and then you can gradually build up your collection as and when you see fit, using the colors that you want to use. And perhaps if you want to change to a different brand, you can do that as well. So I hope that that kind of makes sense and hopefully gives you like a bit of a framework. And in terms of like the big sets, you can always, if you decide that you do want to get them, then that's fine, you can do that. I would say the only big set that I trust that I know would be the 45 pan Winsor & Newton set. That's the Cotman edition, which is their student grade. Now if any of the other brands that I've mentioned come in those big sets, then fair dues as well. But if you see another brand that has like a bit of an odd name and you can only find it on Amazon, that's that big, I would personally just avoid them. No shade. That is pretty much all the questions. Thank you so much to everyone who has answered. I'm sorry that it took so long for me to get round and to actually answer them, but I had a lot of fun doing this. With regards to the painting that I created, I hope that you like it and you enjoyed seeing the process. If you're watching this, especially because it's not like an art haul video, then you are most definitely a real MVP, and I really, really, really appreciate you. So thank you so, so much. Let me know that you're still watching by telling me any facts you're happy to share. So how did you start your art journey and how many languages do you speak? Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next week. Bye.